All right, so I want to teach you guys in this short chapter ahead how to read your lash trays. So we'll take a look at some examples here. Now, when you're on the internet or maybe you're out at a lash store or something and you are wanting to buy lash trays, a lot of the times they will come in packaging looking like this. And you'll see 3 circular dots on the front, or they can either look like a rectangular or a square label on the front, but it's all going to be pretty much the same information. So what you're going to see here is the first label. It will be 0.05, so that's going to tell you the diameter of the single lash. So if I was to pull one single lash out of here, just one, it would be a diameter of 0.05. So we learned back in the diameter chapter that that's very thin, and these are usually the sizing that we would use with volume lashes. So automatically off the top of your head, you would know that you would be using this for a volume set. Now, the second label that you're going to see here is going to be usually the curl. So as we learned in the curl chapters, we have a lot of different curls, B, C, D, C, C, L, M, all those curls. So here you can see on this label, they have D. So that is telling us that these are going to be in the D curl. And then if you see on the third label here, typically this will tell you the sizing, so millimeters in sizing. And if it says mix, that means that it's going to be a mix of sizing. So probably the first couple rows will be 9 millimeters, are very short, and then they'll go 10 millimeters, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and they usually typically only go from like 9 to 15 or 8 to 15 or 8 to 16, but you typically won't see anything really longer than 16. And that is what the mix means. Now, if it doesn't say mix and it only says, for example, like 12, if it says 12 or it says 12 mm, that means that the whole tray, all rows of this tray are going to be the same size, which will be 12 millimeters all across. So from the very first row to the last row, it will be 12 millimeters. Now, I'm going to put this in here as well because you'll see sometimes you may be faced with the option. I don't think so now in today's industry, but back when I was lashing, this was kind of a bigger thing. You always want to be trying to find lash trays that have foil backing. Now, you may see that some trays have paper backing or foil backing. If you come into that where you have to choose, I would always choose the foil backing. And the reason is because when you pull these off of your tray and you set them down on your tile, this will be much easier for removal if you have a foil backing versus a paper backing, because typically the paper backing tends to stick to the backing and it's like kind of just messy. So foil gives it just an easier cleanup. Now let's take a look at pro-made lashes, and if you're out there looking around on the internet or you're, like I said, in the store or something, this is how they're going to be packaged and how they're going to look. So I want you guys to know and understand the labels and how to read them and how to pick them out. So here we can see that they say 7D. So we learned back in, all lashing 101 that we know that if it says 7D, that we're going to be looking at 7 individual hairs to make a bundle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a bundle to make a little fan. So that's why we have 7D. If it said 3D, that means that there's only 3. If it said 2, it means there are only 2. 5, it's only 5. The next symbol we're going to read here, if it says 0.07, right, we know that one individual hair, one of these individual hairs right here, is the weight or the diameter of a 0.07 lash. So if it said 0.05, we know it would be 0.05, just one single of those. So we know by that context that if they are saying 0.0 with the 0 in front of it, 0.07, that we're automatically looking at something that we would be using for volume, right? Because we know that the classics, they begin with the 0.1. And then here we can take a look and it says 10 mm. So what that's telling us is that what's the length of it would be 10 millimeters, right? So this would be 10 millimeters from this point to this point. Now, in my professional opinion, as we spoke about the weight charts and the diameters and how weight adds up into the fan, I would say these are a little bit too heavy because like we looked at in the weight chapter, if I have 0.07 as a single individual hair, right, I really don't want to be going over 3 or 4D. And here they have put together 7D. So for me as a professional, if I saw this, I would not be buying these kinds of lashes because they would be too heavy, in my opinion, for any of my clients that I would see. I would not want to be putting these on because they're just a little too heavy. So if you do see these, make sure that they are in 3D 40 at the max if you're going to buy in 0.07. Now let's take a look over here, another example. So again, they have 8D, so we know that there's 8 individual hairs that are making up the bundle, and it says 0.07, so we know that one individual hair here is a 0.7 in diameter in the weight. And we can see here that it says C, okay? So if it says C, for example, this one over here, it did not say anything about the curl, so you would probably have to see that on their website, or you would have to ask if you're in person, like what the curl is, because it doesn't notify us of that in this photo. But in this photo, it does notify us. It does say 0.07 C, and so we know that the C is the curl type. So we know that these are in a C curl. So they're not the D, they're not the B, they're C curl, nice and natural. And we know here that it says 9 millimeters. So we know that from this point to this point that it is 9 millimeters in length. All right, now let's take a look at the pre-made. And remember, pre-made is pre-manufactured in a factory with heat bonded. So these are pre-made, made by a machine. So this is typically what you're gonna see when you look for pre-made lashes online or whether you're in the store, and it's gonna have a label here that says 6D. So we know that 6D means that there are 6 individual hairs making up one of these fans. Now let's take a look at the 0.10D. Okay, so you'll see another D here, and you might be like, okay, wow, this is getting confusing. So it's going to have a separate sticker usually for how many fans are, or how many lashes are in it to make a fan. And then here it says 0.10D. So this is notifying me that each individual hair is 0.10. That's quite heavy. For one individual hair to be 0.10, to be putting that in a 6D, that's a little bit heavy for me in my opinion. So it's telling me that it's 0.10 is the weight or the diameter of one single hair, and this is in the D curl. So we know that this is a more dramatic curl because D is a little bit more dramatic. So this is in a D curl, and we also know that 13 millimeters is indicating to us that that's the length between the base and the top of the lash. So these are in 13 millimeters would be the length. Again, in my professional opinion, if I'm looking at something that says 0.10, I really don't want to be going over 2D. A 2D is about the heaviest that I would prefer to put on my clients. You can see here that 6D is a little heavy. If you put this lash, this pre-made lash, on one of your clients, let's say that you have an older blonde lady, for example, and she has really thin hair, this is way too heavy for the average person to hold. Just keep that in mind when you guys are looking out there online or in person.